Hi, this is Bill Prentice, CEO of Meridian Energy Group.
The Meridian Energy Group. You mind if we just get a quick update on how things are going with the Davis Refinery out in Belfield, North Dakota?
Sure. We're right in the middle of design at this point for Davis. McDermott International out of Houston is our contractor for that. We're also proceeding with preparation of bid packages for all the fabrication work and including the modules for the refinery, of which there are I think there are over 200 at this point that we're looking at. And so that effort is continuing. Also a lot of activity going on with respect to our crude supply and product marketing agreements and activities. And of course, the plant is fully permitted as of June of 2018, but there's been a significant level of litigation activity associated with the project, and we've been winning at every step along the way there. But there are two current challenges at the Supreme Court that we're working our way through. So litigation continues to be part of what we do.
I know.
I should mention that also just that our activity level is also increasing on the second of our refineries down in Texas.
And let's get an update on that in just a moment or two. I did want to stick on the Davis Refinery for just a second because over the last several years, you've used the term the new normal when it comes to these type of infrastructure projects, to where it in reference to the litigation and the organization behind environmental groups and opposition, that sort of thing, to where really it's almost where it's a stall tactic, if you will, and it's created a new commonplace, a commonness, if you will, for timelines and scheduling fluctuations. Can you comment to me on that a little bit?
Yeah, and we've had opposition to the refinery since day one. As you know, when we first talked, it was in connection with the opposition that had showed up for our conditional use permit hearings down in Billings County. But opposition has good aspects and bad aspects. The refinery design is stronger and cleaner as a result of us knowing that we were going to face that opposition, particularly in regard to the air quality permit. And quite frankly, I welcome that aspect of it. It made us work harder to make sure the plant was going to be unassailable from a technical point of view. So we're grateful to that. But the process of getting the permit itself was protracted because of the threat of litigation. Both ourselves and the permitting agencies spent a lot more time and money in the preparation of the permits because we knew we'd face litigation. And since we obtained the permits, the lawsuits have cost us quite a bit of money and have delayed the projects significantly. So yeah, it's the negative impact of this is the benefits of this project to the local community have been delayed because of this process.
I want to get an update on some of the technology involved here. One of the things that we do here at the Crude Life is we're very much into innovation. We're very much into the environment, so eco-innovation, if you will. Another thing that we do at the Crude Life here, it's a little bit different than most, is we like to read actual scientific studies instead of the political briefings that a lot of people read, or read the summaries of political briefings, if you will. I've seen a few of the scientific documents towards your refinery, and those seem to cut muster, man. Those seem to make the scientific breakthroughs, if you will, cutting new eco grounds. What's going on with your guys' claim that this is going to be the most eco-friendly, environmentally friendly, cleanest refinery on the planet, which I believe it's going to be.
Yeah, that's been an ongoing story and a very interesting one. I'm an engineer by training, so I get very excited about what we're going to do, and our team is very first rate, industry wide. These are guys who didn't want to do things the same old way. This started during the permit process. I think a lot of people were confused by the fact that we got very excited about what we were going to be doing on air quality, even after we filed the first generation of our air quality permit application. And in fact, we came back in April of 2017 with an amended application that showed reduced emissions. We were so excited about what we were able to achieve on the engineering side. And this is just a matter of the fact that nothing like this has been done in 40 years. Last full conversion refinery was built in 76, I think it was. And there's just been a lot of technology developed that hasn't been applied comprehensively in a project like this yet. So obviously we were excited about that. The permit was granted based on that new engineering, and although we were very conservative in doing this, we were able to achieve a synthetic minor source designation for the plant, which again was a first in the industry. Oil and Gas Journal called it historic. And since then, when we get into the details of design, as we've been doing for the last 6 months, we're going to be able to do even better in actual practice. So, our ability to surpass even what we've committed to in the air quality permit is just, we're amazed by that, and we're very proud of it. And it's not just the performance of the project. I mean, good engineering would guide you down this route anyway. When oil is worth $1 a barrel, like it was over 100 years ago, your attitude towards wasted hydrocarbons is different than it is at $60, $70. So good engineering does not like waste. Those are all hydrocarbons that are worth money. But the fact that they get out into the air is not something that we want to see, because we think the industry needs to redo itself and become proficient in building plants that can be put exactly where they're needed, not kicked down the road to where pollution is theoretically more allowable, which is kind of strange to think that way, but that's the way industry has been handled in this country today. So yeah, you've touched on a hot button. I'm really excited about the technology and what we're doing here.
Well, I think it's obviously the big story. My first story I actually did back in 2012 was the Bakken oil boom is not an oil boom; it's a technology boom. And obviously it's driven by oil, but there is so much truth behind that it's a technology boom. It's still every day creating new opportunity through innovation. And that's really exciting. But the other side of this that isn't talked about, because the air quality permitting seems to take up a lot of media time, if you will, and the innovation and some of these things. But the sustainability on the back end kind of gets lost in the shuffle a little bit from time to time. Let's talk about that, about how this is going to be something that's going to be sustainable after it's built.
Well, the threshold energy to get this project in operation has been tremendous. I mean, but once you get it going, it will feed innovation throughout the industry, and lead to a refining industry in the United States that has dramatically lower emissions and much higher efficiency and lower cost. What you mentioned about oil production, the shale oil revolution causing a boom and new innovation, and is absolutely true. And it has to work its way down through the rest of the industry, all the way to the pump. And we consider ourselves part of that larger revolution, if you will. And part of the story there, is, like you were talking about back when you first covered it in 2012, they boom time. But if you recall, when the price of oil took a dive for several years, innovations didn't stop. Those innovations continued apace. And suddenly the oil production industry, faced with adversity, came up with even better solutions to various problems and became even more efficient. And those efficiencies and innovations have carried through into in a more stable environment. And same is true of our refinery. It's a new kind of integration of technology. But when you look at what the industry is facing, including the recent explosion over in the Pennsylvania refinery and then the decision to shut that down, we're looking at aging plant and equipment throughout the United States devoted to refining a different kind of oil coming out of the Bakken and the Permian, and it's not well suited to that. And that plant and equipment is kind of growing along, and it needs to be replaced and updated. Sustainability is something that I think we'll be able to easily achieve because it's going to be the wave of the future.
Well, I think you guys should be commended, the whole staff, the whole team out there, for being a change agent. Being a change agent is not easy, and what you guys are trying to do is actually twofold. One is you're trying to change innovation, so you're trying to make refineries cleaner than they've ever been before for an economical reason and also for an environmental reason. But the other part that is the change agent difficulty is the perception, just the whole perception of what's going on when it comes to refineries in the world and the conditioning over the last 50 years and everything else along those lines. Do you guys ever, take a step back and realize, you guys are actually, kind of like I've said from day one, we're going to be reading about this in history books because this is how monumental this is. If you guys have thought about that, exactly how big of a change agent you are, because you keep going, you're going to be doing another one down in Texas, the Walton Refinery down in Kermit, Texas, which we'll get into. But I just wanted to get your reaction to my comments on, your trailblazingness is really more than a trailblazer and a pioneer because you're changing innovation and perception.
Well, it's that part of it, and I think it's important for people who work hard and do something that's difficult to maybe reach around and pat themselves on the back once in a while. And we do that occasionally when nobody's looking. But for instance, yesterday, we had some gentlemen in here who were representing a group that had won the rights, the permits, if you will, to build a series of refineries in a West African nation. And they had previously been engaged with one of the major oil companies and a major U.S. EPC company to implement that plan, and then heard about the Davis Refinery up in North Dakota. So they came to see us. They don't want to build one of their grandfather's refineries. They want to leapfrog ahead into something that's more efficient and cleaner. And so, we've been recognized worldwide now as an innovator. And that was very gratifying. I don't know how quickly we're going to be able to address something like that when we're so busy on Walton Station and Davis. But, it's nice to know that there are people out there watching and that they like what they see. And it all started in North Dakota.
Well, you guys have been pretty transparent from the beginning. I know that. Talk to me about the transparency involved with this. Was this something that you guys had meetings with, or was this something that just kind of came natural a little bit? Because I know the state sure loves the transparency you guys have.
Well, I've been in the energy business a long time, and I think that one of the things we wanted to do as far as the organization is concerned is to be innovative there as well. people in the energy business tend to be very, close to the vest.
That's
And
saying it
by and
lightly.
large, yes, it's a strategy that's time proven, but again, that doesn't work this day and age. And you also get companies who focus on a storyline and who's going to be the spokesman to carry that storyline. And it's better just to have your guys authorized to speak the truth about what's going on whenever they're asked. And that way you don't get into a situation where people are getting a different story from different parts of the company and don't understand what's happening. And that's bitten us a few times, I had a recent interview where a news journalist was asking about where we are in financing the projects, and the resulting report was just pretty astounding to me because it didn't reflect anything that I told the guy. He just kind of grabbed a number here and there and wrote up something that has been repeated a couple of times that is absolute disinformation. And so it gets very frustrating. There is a price to be paid for openness, but it is not a matter of policy or concerted messaging. We don't know how to keep track of any weird stories we might decide to tell, so let's just tell people what's going on.
One of the things I love about the Kermit, Texas announcement with the Walton Refinery is that it really shows how much you guys believe in what you're doing. And that to me is just crystal clear with that announcement. Talk to me a little bit about the Kermit, Texas Walton Refinery down there.
Well, it's an interesting site. It's right on the western edge of the Delaware Formation, which is kind of in the middle of the whole overall Permian play. It's a growing area, very consistent product coming out of there, and the infrastructure for moving crude around is developing rapidly. The design for the refinery, because of the nature of the crude, is going to be very similar to Davis. The only thing we have there that's different really is a higher sulfur content. And that means actually it's better than Bakken because we can use conventional sulfur removal as opposed to Bakken requires a slightly more custom technology, because Bakken sulfur is so low. And so it's just going to be a little bit more traditional refinery. It's going to be a little bit larger than the Davis Refinery. Texas permitting is, from a regulatory point of view, very similar to North Dakota. So our experience in permitting the Davis Refinery is directly applicable. In fact, the same guys are going to handle the entire process for us. And we're just excited to get it started. We did the land deal back in February. We've been collecting information, and we're just about ready to start soils and geology work there. And then we'll be starting the permit process very quickly.
I know I mentioned that the action of going ahead with another refinery shows how much you believe in your technology, your innovation, and everything else. But also it shows that you guys have put together a model, a formula. Talk to me about the Meridian Model that you guys have come up with, because it appears to me you guys are leveraging some technologies and some resources.
Yeah, our intellectual property is not purely technical. If you could still patent business methodology like Amazon did back in the day, we'd be real busy with a patent application right now. But the technology itself is already proven. We're not doing anything that's bent scale, that needs to be proven. This is all lead pipe cinch. We know it's going to work. The way we integrate it is different. The way we handle the control technology is different. It's going to be the first digital refinery in effect. So it embraces everything that's evolved over the last couple of decades on information technology. And we find that that combination requires very little tweaking when we move from one shale basin to another. And so therefore, it's not a perfect cookie cutter, but it's close enough for us, and we're going to take it elsewhere. The Walton Station site is done. We're starting all the work necessary to move the permitting forward. We have a third location that we're inciting on right now in the Oklahoma frame of reference. I won't be more specific than that, but that'll be our third location. And then we'll branch out from there. As I mentioned earlier, there's some international interest which we could handle through joint ventures and other relationships. That's getting way down the road. We want to get Davis built and Walton Station permitted before we start worrying too much about the distant future.
A third location, international interest, that's what we call in the business a tease. So we'll have to keep Mr. William Prentice on our speed dial to make sure we know what's happening down the path, because that's where I see you guys going too, is international with this. It doesn't surprise me at all that you're already getting entertained, if you will, about some international refineries and interests, etc. So any final thoughts, anything we left out, anything you might want to reiterate, anything that you have as a extra message or a chili recipe, anything like that for today? You know me, I like to give guests the final word, so the question's not framed by the host.
I had a bowl of wild boar chili the other day, and I wish I had the recipe for it. It was great.
I'm waiting for the person to actually take me up on that, because I throw that out there as a joke every now and then, but I'm expecting one little smart guy is going to come forward and say, I've got a great jambalaya recipe that'll knock your socks off. Anyway.
I'll tell you what, I'll find out how to make wild boar chili before we talk next time. But, the one thing I might add is, people in North Dakota have been very patient with us. It's taken us a long time to get the permits. It seems like it's taken a long time for the refinery to get started. It's awfully hard if you're in North Dakota to see all of the work that's ongoing on Davis. It's all engineering and procurement related, and it's all happening in Houston right now. So I understand the impatience, and just want to apologize for that. There's going to be an increasing amount of activity at the site starting next year, because that's when we'll have foundation designs done, and we'll be ready to get those foundations started so that the modules can be installed as they're fabricated and shipped. We're eager to get the project built, and I think everybody that's helped us in North Dakota with this project, and they're not going to be sorry that they did.